On the show now is Mayur Karmarkar. He's Managing Director at International Copper Association India. Mr. Karmarkar, hi, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, what's your sense when it comes to the copper demand within India, the growth that you are seeing here, and what's your sense on the kind of import numbers that we are working with?
Copper demand, particularly for the financial 2023, has grown up by 16%, which was far better than the earlier year. The reasons for the growth is the infrastructure investment. We have got a railway network being strengthened. We got telecom network getting into 5G. We have renewable energy as the power infrastructure replacing the coal. So as a result of that, the demand for the copper as an infrastructure driver remains stronger. The housing sector or the building construction is always at the bottom of the pyramid. And particularly in that sector, last year we saw the growth of 11%. So, copper is needed for every build space which is constructed. Every square feet of copper will require at least 30 grams of copper in form of the wire and cable, leaving aside the air conditioners and so many other products. So overall, in the current situation, we saw the demand for copper remain stronger with the various drivers coming from all the sectors, including you can see the consumer spending. The aircon sales has reached to almost 9+ million for the financial year 2023. We have automotive sales growing up to 21%. So all sectors which are linked with the infrastructure from the private and the government sector investment, as well as consumer spending, all has helped in terms of having the demand of 16% up, which is, I would say, highest in the world. China has seen the growth of 4%. Of course, China base is much bigger, which is 14 million plus ton. We have grown over the base of 1.3 million ton. So we can't compare ourselves with China that way. But global also the copper demand for the refined copper has increased 3%, which is more or less with a strain in the previous year.
Also, Mr. Karmarkar, what's your sense on India's import dependence? And at that apart, the kind of scrap consumption that India sees, what's your sense on that? How have those numbers grown as well?
India's dependence on scrap is very heavy. In fact, the same breath I can say that we have a huge shortage of refined copper, which should be used in an electrical application. Total scrap dependency was almost like 34% this year. And unfortunately, so depending on scrap is not a bad thing. It helps for the circularity. It helps in many ways. But we don't have a refining capacity of that scrap. And that creates the quality issue for the Indian market. Most of the wire and cable, for the product like wire and cable and winding wire, which has to be made out of ETP copper as per the IS standard 191, we have 31% of it coming through a secondary route, which is not a refined copper. So as a result of that, there is always a compromise on the conductivity. There is always a compromise on the purity, which is affecting on the safety of the electrical installation, or which is also affecting the energy losses within the product. So yes, the absence of refining capacity of the scrap is a more pain area for the country.
So while you've spoken to us about demand, where the growth has been strong, refining capacity and scrap as well, but what's your sense on the imports now? India does need a lot of copper, as you said. What is the role that imports do in catering to this demand?
Oh, yeah, import has grown by, more than 100%. I think 180% import has grown. This is primarily because of the refining capacity. The refined copper capacity is not as the demand is. So as a result of that, due to the constraint on the refined copper supply, the imports has increased. Most of these imports is coming from Japan, which is the trade partner of India.
All right, Mr. Karmarkar, thank you so much for joining us. So clearly, a lot of the stuff that still needs to be done within the Indian markets. And when we are looking at the copper demand, that continues to grow almost at a pace of the 16%. But the imports also have grown up by 180%. So that is something that India will be looking at. But with that, let's take a very short break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the equity markets.